There we go.
So,
Look at that.
So overconfidence bias.
By zooming out.
Overconfidence bias, sometimes in the psychology world, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. But overconfidence bias happens when you think that you know more than somebody who is a professional in that field. So for example, a person with no medical background thinking they know more than their doctor because they looked up their symptoms on the internet. So overconfidence bias is when you believe you know more about something than somebody else who's an expert on that. So the way to combat, the way to fight against overconfidence bias is by just staying humble, being aware that you don't know everything, and being open and keeping an open mind to other people's knowledge and experience, okay? Confirmation bias is seeking out information with the intention of confirming your pre-existing beliefs. So this is something that people do a lot when they are arguing for something. You may already feel strongly about something. So if you already feel strongly about something, when you research it, you're going to be probably looking for things to confirm what you already believe. So that's called confirmation bias. So for example, a person who believes that Bigfoot exists and believes strongly and wants Bigfoot to exist is going to be looking for sources that confirm that Bigfoot exists. So confirmation bias is trying to look only for things that confirm what you already want to be true. So a good way to avoid that is to not make up your mind. A good way to avoid confirmation bias is to not make up your mind about an issue until you've learned about it and you've researched it and you've learned about it from multiple perspectives, okay? And then once you've looked at multiple perspectives and multiple evidence from different sources, then you can decide how you feel about it. Anchoring bias, this is like first impressions. So like first impressions influence what you think about something, even if it's not necessarily true. So anchoring bias, if you have a negative first impression of somebody, you're more likely to think negatively about them. Availability heuristic, this is just a very fancy way of saying that if you like hear about something happening that happened to someone, you're more likely to think that it's going to happen to you. So like, even if it's extremely, extremely unlikely. So for example, people like shark attacks like never happen. Like they're very, very, very rare. So shark attacks are extremely rare, but if you hear about a shark attack on the news, you're more likely to think that they happen all the time and that they're more likely to happen to you, which isn't true. Same thing about hearing about somebody who's been struck by lightning. If you hear about somebody being struck by lightning, you're more likely to think that it's going to happen to you. Hindsight bias. Hindsight bias is when you think that something could have been predicted after the fact. So after something happens, you say like, oh, I could have seen that coming. You can't, like none of us can predict the future, so hindsight bias is not really a real thing. Bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect is very, very common. This one, I'd like you guys to make it quick. Make a really, really quick note here at the bottom for bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect means
I can't ever forget my password because my mom doesn't make it.
Peer pressure or like popularity. Like popularity pressure or peer pressure. Okay, so bandwagon effect is forming or joining the majority opinion because you want to fit in. So joining a trend or supporting something because it's popular. So bandwagon effect is when you decide to believe the same things that a group of people believe because you want to fit in with that group. So an example of bandwagon effect. Your families might all root for a specific sports team. So your family might root for like a specific team in the NFL. And maybe you don't really care about sports, but you decide that you're going to root for that team too, so that you fit in with the rest of your family. That would be an example of bandwagon. Or you might be like, or you might be a rebel and you might be like, I'm not gonna, that would be good. That would be making up your own mind. And
I
making it for yourself.
I like Steelers and Eagles, and I was.
Okay.
Cut that out.
Okay, next one. Turn to page 15 really quick and pay attention, please. Okay,
Page 10.
halo effect. So halo effect is very similar to first impression bias. So halo effect is when you find somebody attractive. So if you think that somebody is pretty or if you think that somebody is handsome, you are more likely to also think that they are good people, that they are smart, that they are capable or skilled. So you're more likely to assume that if you think that somebody is attractive, you're more likely to assume other positive things about them. So that's halo effect. It kind of creates this like halo of this like positive aura around them.
See.
All right. Not that
Or not.
Not that kind of aura. Okay. 15.
No.
All right. Actor observer bias. This one is really, really common, guys. So I want you to pay attention to this one. So this is actor observer bias. Sometimes it's called self-serving bias. This is when I want you to make a quick note of this one. So self-serving. So self-serving bias is like double standards. So, alright, so self-serving bias is like having double standards for other people than what you have for yourself. So for example, we tend to,
Oh, don't do that.
if we make a mistake versus when other people make mistakes, okay?
I was a mistake.
Oh wait. Oh wait. When we, Ellen.
I was just
Alright, when we make mistakes, we tend to blame outside factors. When other people make mistakes, we tend to blame them for their own mistakes. We tend to blame them for their own faults. If we make a mistake, we tend to try to blame things that are outside of us. When other people make mistakes, we tend to point the finger at them. Okay, that's what self-serving bias is. So for example, I saw this the other day. I was watching people argue on the internet for fun, and I saw somebody.
Miss Schaefer. Wait. I have a question.
Hold on. Okay, let me finish telling my story, and
But
then
it's a major question. It's a major.
finish telling my story first,
Can you actually stop talking?
and then I will check in with you. Okay? So
Like, or
I was
not
watching
Michael. What was
people
the
argue on
other
the
one?
internet for fun. One of them was.
Tyler,
One
you're
of
big.
them was.
That wasn't me.
I'll wait.
I'm sorry.
God, stop talking. Okay, so one of them was
Yeah, I'm a big
saying that the other person's argument was bad because they kept making like
I'm trying to pop
because
it.
they made like a couple of punctuation mistakes in their writing.
Ow.
And so like they were basically saying like you're so unprofessional. Look at all these like punctuation mistakes that you made. But at the same time, that person who was saying that to that other person was also making a bunch of punctuation mistakes in their own writing. And when somebody pointed that out to them, they said, oh, I was typing and I was like, I had gloves on my hands and I was typing my hands. That's why I made those punctuation mistakes. So exactly. So that's what self-serving bias is. It's when you make excuses for yourself and your own mistakes, but you think that other people have flaws because they make mistakes. All right. Yes.
Your
What?
story is over. Do you actually watch on the internet like people argue just for fun?
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. Occasionally.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh, and you could just go to my mom's house. There's a lot of arguing there.
Sometimes it's fun to just like watch drama. Like,
Yeah, at
don't
school.
you ever like get popcorn and just watch people like fight?
You could just go to
I
my
don't
house
like
if you want to see
popcorn.
drama.
I don't like popcorn.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Wow. We're definitely meant to be friends.
All right. Last three guys. We're gonna go through these really quickly. Okay. All right. So framing bias. Framing bias shows
I want
up a lot in
cereal.
surveys. Framing bias is when you ask a question in a way to try to get the answer that you want. It's kind of similar to confirmation
off.
bias, but it's about how you frame the situation to get the outcome that you want. False consensus. False consensus happens when people are really overconfident in sharing their opinions. So false consensus is when people assume that everyone else agrees with them. So people who are really overconfident in sharing their opinions often have this because they are confident because they assume that other people are just going to agree with them and that other people believe the same things that they do. And then last thing, misinformation effect. This is when we tend to misremember things after they happen. So this happens a lot in like court when you've got witnesses trying to remember what happened during a crime. So people,
Sorry.
especially in emergencies or scary situations, our brains cannot focus on everything and remember everything. We only remember certain details, and then our brains try to fill in the gaps afterward, and that's what misinformation effect. That's when misinformation effect happens. So when people misremember like crimes as witnesses in court, that's an example of this. Yeah.
It's also commonly known as the Mandela effect as well.
Yes. All right. All right. Please get out your iPads. Go to look at really quick. Keep these notes out, page 14 and 15, to kind of help you. We're going to play a quick review game with these. There may be one or two examples of biases that we didn't talk about in this look at, but maybe you'll learn about a couple of others.
Okay, I was close.
All right.
Y'all,
Go
I
ahead
almost did
and
it.
go to look at. We're gonna play a quick
Wait,
review game.
what the freak? How'd she do it?
No, you get this at the end. All right, here we go.
What the? Like that, and then.
All right, so cognitive bias, okay? We're gonna follow.
Hang on, try a different one. No, she does it very well.
Logical fallacies one at the end. Okay. So 395, 8138.
You pull up the booklet. So I can the booklet. Booklet, shut up. Hang on, let me feel.
You guys playing together?
Yes, I'm playing on my iPad.
I'm gonna do it.
Why don't you go down first?
No, it went away.
So fill out your nurse form and you can do it.
Oh, I got one.
No. You get that.
Oh, you can't buy them.
Hang on, I think I was close.
That kind of.
That looked wrong. Don't freaking put your foot on my ankle.
All right, guys, get logged in. 395, 8138.
Is the music still playing?
No. It looks like I'm wearing lip liner from far away.
What's the code?
Back there, 395-8138. And then Mike, give me a thumbs up when you're in. Emma, are you in? Yeah. All right. Haley, are you in?
I'm playing with my.
Together.
Okay.
Emma, can you hand me that?
Jeffrey, you in? Yeah. Okay. Raymond, are you in?
Can you hand me that?
You in?
I'm in. I'm in.
Thank you.